class in the Java because Java does not support for multiple inheritance. Then runnable. Runnable is an interface. In the Java, a class can implement any number of interfaces. Runnable interface having a run method, we need to override that run method. And the next one, callable interface is available. Callable interface nothing but which is going to have a call method. Call method is going to return object as a return type. Okay, fine. But if you go for this approach to create the threads, number of threads we are creating are hard coded. In future, we cannot increase the thread count or we cannot decrease the thread count. Okay, so that's why in the Java 1.5 version, they introduced a concept called executor framework. In the Java 1.5, they introduced a concept called executor framework. By using this executor framework, we can create any number of threads dynamically. You just need to pass that thread count as a input. So executor service dot new fixed thread pool, I'm giving that a 10. Then I'm going to take a pool service. Then for every thread in the pool, I'm going to submit a task so that I can execute my program with multiple threads so that the processing will be quick. Are you clear with my point? Come on guys. Now let us try to modify the code in order to execute the program with the multiple threads. Let us try to modify the program in order to execute with the multiple threads. Okay, generate notices. Here it is available guys. Generate notices method is available, which is getting all the triggers, and we are processing each trigger. Now here I'm going to write one method. Public integer process trigger. Now I'm going to take a trigger object as a parameter for that. Public process trigger, I'm going to pass a CO trigger object as a parameter for this method. CO trigger object as a parameter for this method. Now this method is going to execute this logic. Whatever the logic we have. Once I pass the trigger, then this logic is going to execute. From the entity, get the case number, then get the eligibility data. Okay, fine. Now, so this complete logic I'm going to keep inside my process method. Okay, how can I keep this complete logic in the process method? Let us do one thing here. Whatever the logic I want to keep inside the process method, I will select that logic and I will keep that logic inside the method. Select this logic, right click, refactor, right click, extract method. Now whatever the logic is available, I'm extracting that to method process trigger. Done. Okay, so with this I'm getting process trigger method. Now if that logic is executed successfully, then trigger count will be incremented. Process trigger, so I'm going to do success count of the triggers will be incremented if this method is executed successfully. If we get any problem in that method, then failure count will be executed. Instead of writing the logic in the same method, I have extracted the logic to a different method. Return success count, or it is returning success count. Let me remove this. Let me take it as a void. I am going to throw one single exception, that is called exception. Integer success count also not required. Trigger entity and case number. We are passing. Now we can take the case number from the entity itself. Entity dot get case number. Entity dot get case number. Okay, I no need to pass the case number as a parameter because case number is already available in the entity. Right, now what is my process method is going to do? Observe carefully. Here I have taken the method called process trigger. It is my private method. This process method will take entity object as a parameter. In that entity we have a case number. Based on the case number, it is getting the eligibility data. Based on the eligibility data, it is generating a PDF file. Then it is sending an email. Then it is updating the PDF to the database, and it is setting the status as a completed, and it is updating that. So can we say that this logic is used to process one trigger? Can we say that this logic is used to process one trigger? Guys, all of you, can you say that this logic is used to process one trigger? Is there anything new or which is already implemented in the last class? Is there anything new available or which is already implemented in the last class? Guys, is there anything new? Is there anything new is available or which is already implemented in the last class? There is nothing new which is already implemented in the last class. Okay, we are taking entity object as a parameter. We are taking entity object as a parameter. We are taking entity object as a parameter. Based on the entity object, we are getting the eligibility data. Based on the eligibility data, we are getting the PDF and sending the PDF. Then we are storing the PDF to the database table, and we are updating the trigger status as a completed. Process trigger method. Now we need to call this process trigger method by passing entity object as a parameter. We need to call the process trigger method by passing entity object as a parameter. This is my logic. This is my logic. Okay, let me try to debug this application. Go to MySQL Workbench. Go to MySQL Workbench. Let's try to debug this application. Connect to the database. Is the database is up and running? Login into AWS console. Let me check my database is running or not. I think database is not running. Go to RDS. Go to databases. Oh, database is deleted. Sorry, I think I'm in the different region. Go to Mumbai region. I changed my region to Mumbai. In the Mumbai region, I have the database. What is the status of the database? Currently, my database is stopped. Select it, start the database. I'm starting my database. Once the database is started, then I will connect to the database by using my workbench. Once the database is started, I will connect to my database by using MySQL Workbench. Yeah, let's wait for some time. The database is getting started. Once the database is started, we can connect to that database. Already the trigger status is completed. I will switch the trigger back to pending and I will run this. Still it is getting started. Guys, is my voice audible clearly? Is my voice audible clearly? Guys, we need to wait till the database gets started. It's taking long time. Status is backing up. It is getting ready, I think so. Meanwhile, we will see how to make the changes to our code, guys. Now here we are having a method called generate notices method. In that method we are getting all the triggers which are in the pending status. So the triggers which are in the pending status, we are iterating the trigger one by one. We are iterating the triggers one by one by using for each loop. Then we are calling process trigger method. The process trigger method we are calling here. The process trigger method we are calling. That process trigger method is used to generate one notice for given entity. If that method executed successfully, then success count will be incremented. If it is failed to execute, then failure count will be incremented. In the process trigger method, based on the given entity, I am getting the case number. Based on the case number, I am getting the eligibility data. Based on the eligibility data, I am generating a PDF file. That PDF file I am storing into database table and I am sending a email. Then I am storing the PDF into database and I am updating the trigger status as a completed status. Now let me connect to my DB. Yes, I'm able to connect to my DB. So let me use IHIS. Let me show the tables. Let me see CO triggers table available. I will make the trigger as a pending trigger. I will change the status to pending because I want to process that. Currently the trigger status is completed. Let me make it as a pending. Update the CO triggers. Update the CO triggers. Set trigger status is equal to pending. I'm setting the status back to pending so that I can process. Trigger status is equal to pending, where trigger ID is equal to 1. Where trigger ID is equal to 1. CO triggers, what is the column name? CO trigger ID. CO underscore trigger ID is the column name. CO underscore trigger ID is the column name. I'm updating the trigger back to the pending. Let me do commit. I'm committing this table. Now see select star from CO triggers. Now select star from CO triggers is executing. What is the trigger status? Where trigger ID is equal to 101. I have to update this. Then I have to commit this. Select star from CO triggers. Now see, trigger ID is in the pending state. Now when the trigger ID is in the pending state, I want to debug this program. Currently one thread is available. Guys, here let me go for trigger entity, that is triggers I am passing for each loop. How many times this loop will be executed now? How many times this loop is executing now? How many times this loop is going to execute now? Only one time. Why? Because we are having only one trigger. Let me do one thing. For integer I is equal to 0, I less than or equal to 1000, I plus plus. Okay, I less than or equal to 1000. Then what I will do is triggers dot get of 0. I'm going to get one record. Then I'm going to execute. How many times this loop is going to execute now? Guys, in the database, I don't have multiple records here. It is a cloud database. If you insert multiple records, if it is a cloud database, if you insert multiple records into the cloud database and if you retrieve, then it is going to charge the bill for us. So that's why what I am doing is, I'm just writing a loop to execute for 1000 times. What is the trigger I am processing every time? Can I write get of I? If I write the get of I, what will happen? Triggers dot get of 0, triggers dot get of 1, triggers dot get of 2. Do we have the logic to get the multiple triggers, or we have only one trigger? Guys, tell me, in the database do we have multiple triggers, or we have only one trigger in the database? In the database we have only one trigger. If you want to try with the multiple triggers, yesterday I have given you one loop. For each loop I have given. By using this, we can insert the records into database table. we can insert multiple records into database table. So that is the stored procedure I have given for you. If you want to test your application with multiple triggers, then if you have a local database, then try this scenario. Okay. Now this is a procedure which I have given. By using this procedure, we can insert. By using this procedure, you can insert all the records into table. Now here I have given you a loop, while loop I is equal to less than 10,000. That means it is going to insert 1000 records into database table. Then you can process. Don't do this experiment with the cloud database, guys, because cloud database will charge the amount if you do this kind of operations. If you have a local database setup, then only try that local database operation by inserting multiple records into your table. Currently what I am doing is I am going to process the same trigger. I am passing trigger of 0, so that same trigger, because I don't have a database table with multiple records. I'm going to execute a loop here. 1000 times I'm executing the loop. 1000 times it is going to process the trigger. I'm processing the same trigger for 1000 times. Right. Now when I go for process trigger method, send email method, I'm not even going to send the mail, guys, because email sending for 1000 times will hang our system. We are using Gmail SMTP. Our email server will be blocked. So that's why I'm just commenting the send method. I want to execute the loop for 1000 times, but I don't want to send the 1000 emails because I have only one record. If you have the real data, 10,000 customers data if you have, or 1000 customers data if you have, then you can go for that. But here I don't have that much data in the database table. That is the reason I'm trying to execute a loop for 1000 times. I'm processing the same trigger. Basically you need to pass I. In the real time you will process triggers.get of I. When I process triggers.get of I, then what will happen? From this list of triggers, it is going to take each trigger based on the index. Triggers.I means it is going to get the pending trigger based on the index I. But in the database, we have a limitation. We are using a cloud database for free of cost. If you do more operations, then it is going to charge the bill amount for us. It is going to charge the bill amount for us. So that's why I have retrieved pending triggers. I got only one pending trigger. Same pending trigger I am passing every time to process trigger method. Process trigger method. What is the process trigger method is going to do? It is going to read the eligibility data from the table. It is going to generate the PDF. It is going to send the email. In the email sending also, I have commented the send method. Why? Because unnecessarily 1000 emails will be sent from our application, which is not good to send to the same email ID. Our email will be blocked if you do this. Google will understand that we are doing a spam. So that's why I have commented send method. I'm executing the loop 1000 times, but the record I am passing as a same. Why I am passing a same record? I don't have the data in the database. Now let us see how much time it is going to take to execute. Run as boot application. Guys, do you understand why I am passing 0 here as a index value? Get of 0. Do you understand why I am passing 0? Actually we need to pass the 0, or we need to pass the I value. Do we need to pass the 0 or we need to pass the I value? I value we need to pass. But why I am passing 0 here? Can you tell me? No data available in the database. That's why one trigger only available. I'm passing the same trigger every time. So if you have 1000 records in the database, then you can pass I value. Loop will execute for 1000 times. Every time it is going to get the next trigger and it is going to process. As I don't have the 1000 records in the table, I'm passing a 0 value. Only first trigger it is going to take. 0th index it is going to take. One trigger it is going to process. Now it started. Okay. Next one. When I send a request to this REST API, it is going to process the trigger for 1000 times. Can you do a stopwatch and can you see how much time it is going to take to process? Can you take a stopwatch and can you see how much time it is going to take to process 1000 triggers now? Email sending is commented because unnecessarily 1000 emails will go. I have commented that logic. Can you open your stopwatch, guys? Can you open your stopwatch? Yes. Now I'm going to send a request to this localhost : 8080/notices. Do I have the port number as 8080 in the YML? Okay, port number is 7777. Localhost : 7777/notices. 7777/notices. Start the stopwatch, send a request now. See the console. Is it processing the records for 1000 times? Is it processing the records for 1000 times now? See that? Continuously the queries are executing to retrieve the data. Continuously the queries are executing to retrieve the data. How many threads are processing my application now? Can you tell me? How many threads are processing my application now? Only one thread is processing my application. Only one thread is processing my application. 1000 triggers I am processing with only one thread. 1000 triggers I am processing with only one thread. Almost 1 minute completed. Almost 1 minute completed in the stopwatch. Yep, 1 minute completed. 1 minute completed. It is a processing. Here we are doing very less operations. We are not sending the email also. We are not sending the email also. We are retrieving the data from only one table. But in the real time, we need to retrieve the data from the multiple tables and we need to send the PDF in the email. Lot of time it is going to take to process one trigger. Here in the process trigger method, we have very less logic. We are retrieving the data from only one database table, and email sending also we have commented. Email sending also we have commented. So it will take less time only to complete. But in the real time, this method will contain the logic to retrieve the data from 50 tables or 40 tables. It has to send the email. It has to store the PDF. So each trigger will take a lot of time to process in the real time. Here I have a very limited code to process the trigger. Email sending also I have commented. Why? Because unnecessarily 1000 times email will be sent to the user. So that's why I have commented that also. In the real time, company SMTP server will be available. We can use that. But here we are using our Gmail SMTP, which will consider our application execution as a spam. It will block our email. It will block our email. That's why I have commented that logic. Now my program is executing. It is processing the trigger 1000 times. I kept the logic in a loop. I kept the logic in a loop. So loop counter is executing for 1000 times. So 1000 times the trigger is going to process. 1000 times the trigger is going to process. If you have 1 lakh records, then 1 lakh records will be processed. 2 minutes 45 seconds. 2 minutes 45 seconds. Still it is executing. 2 minutes 50 seconds. 2 minutes 50 seconds. 1000 times the loop is executing. Now you see in our workspace folder how many PDFs it is generating. Go to workspace, go to CO API, go to CO API. Now refresh. Okay, case number is same, so same file it is keep on updating. Same file it is keep on updating because case number is same. So same file is creating multiple times because we are processing one trigger for 1000 times. 3 minutes 26 seconds. 3 minutes 30 seconds. Anybody watching the stopwatch? Anybody watching the stopwatch? Yes. How much time? How much time? Three minutes 50 seconds. 3 minutes 50 seconds. 3 minutes 50 seconds. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Still the batch is executing. Still the program is executing. Still the program is executing. It is processing continuously. 1000 times it is interacting with the database. 1,000 times it is going to interact with the database, because it has to get the eligibility data, it has to get the citizen email data, it has to update the record. For every record, 3 queries will execute with the database, guys. For every record, 3 queries. To get the application register, to get the eligibility data, database query should execute. To get the email ID of the citizen, it has to interact with the database. To store the PDF and update status, database execution. So for every record, we are going to communicate with the database for 3 times. It is a costly operation. Getting the eligibility data, getting the citizen email ID, updating the trigger status. For every record, 3 database calls are going to happen. In the real time, for every trigger, 50 database calls also will happen, because we need to retrieve lot of data to generate the PDF. 50 queries will execute for 1 trigger. If you have 1 lakh triggers, 1 lakh into 50 lakh times your application will communicate with the database. 50 times your application will communicate with the database. Now completed, guys. Stop the watch. Stop the watch. Total triggers processed. Total triggers processed here. Okay. Success triggers count. Success triggers count, we got 1001. 1001 times our loop is executed, because index started from 0 less than or equal to 1000. So 1001 times it is going to process. 5 minutes 15 seconds it has taken to process. Can we note down the time? How much time it has taken to process the 1000 triggers, guys? How much time it has taken to process the 1000 triggers? 5 minutes 15 seconds it has taken. 5 minutes 15 seconds it has taken. Can we reduce the time? Can we reduce that time by using multi-threading? Yes. Update the trigger back to pending state. In order to process the trigger 1000 times, it has taken 5 minutes 15 seconds. Now my trigger is switched back to pending state. Now I want to do the same logic by using multi-threading. I want to do the same logic by using multi-threading. Okay, very good. I got the pending triggers. Now, in order to do this execution with the multi-threading, I'm going to use executor framework. Stop this. I want to go for executor framework. Executors dot new fixed thread pool. I'm passing 10 threads here. Executors dot new fixed thread pool. I'm creating a thread pool with the 10 threads. Executor completion service. Executor completion service. Some object. I'm taking pool is equal to new executor completion service of executor service we have created. I'm passing that as a parameter. Observe this. I have created executor service by using fixed thread pool. Executors dot new fixed thread pool I have created. I have given 10 threads. Now you see this diagram. I'm creating a thread pool. How we are creating a thread pool? This thread pool, how we are creating? This thread pool we are creating by using new fixed thread pool. New fixed thread pool I am creating. That thread pool I'm giving to completion service. That is a pool. Whatever the threads I'm creating, the threads I'm keeping in a pool in order to submit the task. Okay. Now, how to submit a task to the thread? For every thread, I'm going to submit a task. Pool.submit. What I need to do here, guys? I'm going to do pool.submit. What it is expecting pool.submit method? Pool.submit. It is used to submit the task to the thread. Pool.submit. Either you can pass callable task or you can pass a runnable task for the. You can pass a callable task to the submit method or you can pass a runnable task to the submit method. That means you need to pass one task to the thread. Callable. Okay. Callable is an interface. We cannot create the object. So I'm going to create anonymous implementation for the callable. I'm going to create the anonymous implementation for the callable. In the callable, we have a call method. We need to override that call method. We need to override the call method in the callable interface. Are you guys clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point? How I am implementing the callable here? Here, I have created a thread pool. executors dot new fixed thread pool. I have given that 10. That means I want to create the 10 threads. Whatever the 10 threads I'm creating, I want to keep the 10 threads in the pool. For that, I'm writing a logic, executor completion service of the executor service. I got the executor completion service. So with this, my threads are ready in the pool. For the threads which are in the pool, I want to submit the task. I want to submit the task. In order to submit the task to the thread, I'm calling pool.submit method. What is this pool.submit method? Pool.submit method is taking a callable object. Callable is an interface. We cannot create the object for the interface. That's why I'm creating anonymous implementation for the callable. Inside the callable anonymous implementation, I am overriding call method. Inside the call method, you can write the logic to execute by the thread. Logic to execute by thread. That logic you need to write. Guys, now are you able to understand these 3 lines of code? First, I am creating a thread pool. The threads which I have created by using executors, I am keeping them in a completion service pool. Why I am keeping them in the completion service pool? In order to submit the task. Now with this, if you see this diagram, my triggers are ready. Already I have retrieved the pending triggers from the table, and now I have created the threads also. Thread pool is ready, trigger pool is ready. For every thread, I need to submit a task to process my trigger. That is the code we need to do. That is the code. Thread pool is created. Triggers pool already we have retrieved from the database. From the database table, we are retrieving all the pending triggers. From the database table, we are retrieving all the pending triggers. Now, thread pool is created. How to submit the task to the thread? By using this pool method, we can submit a task to the thread. Here I am taking pool.submit. Pool.submit. For that I am passing callable object. Now, see here how I am going to write this pool.submit method. Pool.submit. That method is expecting a callable object or it is expecting a runnable object. I'm going for callable. Can I create a callable object like this, new callable? Is it valid? Is it valid? Callable is a class or callable is an interface, guys. You see here, callable I am implementing or callable I am extending. Callable is an interface. So interface means you need to create the object for the implementation class. You need to create the object for the implementation class. Implementation class creation is a old style. Anonymous implementation we can do. Anonymous implementation we can do. Anonymous implementations we can do. Now see here, pool.submit. Pool.submit of new callable. New callable. It is not possible because it is an interface. Let us do anonymous implementation for this. Let us do anonymous implementation for this. It is expecting some generic type. I'm giving object as a generic type. Callable interface is having a call method. We need to override the call method. That's it. Inside the call method, write the logic which should be executed by the thread. Inside the call method, write the logic which should be executed by the thread. Guys, are you clear with this code? All of you clear with this code? Here I am getting the pending triggers. Here I am creating a thread pool. For the threads available in the pool, I want to submit the task. To submit the task to the threads available in the pool, I am calling pool.submit method. For the submit method, I am passing a callable object. Callable is an interface. So I am providing the anonymous implementation for the callable and I am overriding the call method. Inside the call method, you need to write the logic which you want to execute by the thread. Inside the call method, you need to write the logic which should be executed by the thread. Understood? What is the logic I have implemented? See here. It is retrieving the threads which are available. It is retrieving the triggers which are available in the pending status. CO trigger repository dot find by trigger status. I am passing the trigger status as a pending. It is going to get all the pending triggers from the table. It is a triggers pool. Then I am creating a thread pool. For the threads available in the thread pool, I want to submit the task. In order to submit the task to the threads available in the thread pool, I am taking a completion service. Pool.submit. Pool.submit of a callable. So for this pool.submit means whenever I call pool.submit, it will take one thread from the pool, it will submit this task. Once the task is submitted to first thread, it will take the second thread from the pool. It is going to submit the task. When you call this pool.submit for third time, it will take the third thread and it is going to submit the task to that. Okay, fine. So task I have to submit for only one thread. Task I need to submit for all the threads. Task I will submit for only one thread, or a task I will submit for all the threads, guys. Can you tell me here? With this logic, how many times I am submitting the task for the thread now? With this logic, how many times I am submitting the task for the thread? Only one time I am submitting the task to the thread. Now, do I need to submit the task only one time? I need to submit the tasks till my loop is completed. I need to submit the task only one time, or I need to submit the task till my pending triggers are completed. I need to submit the task till my pending triggers are completed. So for every pending trigger, I will submit a task to the thread pool. For every pending trigger, I will submit a task to the thread pool. So now, can I keep this logic in the loop? Can I keep this task submission in a loop? For every pending trigger, I will submit a task to the thread. Can I keep this logic in a loop so that take one pending trigger, submit the task. Take second pending trigger, submit the task. Take the third pending trigger, submit the task. Take the fourth pending trigger, submit the task. Can I do that, guys? Can I do that now? Yeah. So before going to do that, anybody having questions? Yeah, Sanjala, what is your doubt?
Yeah, hi, sir.
Yep.
So my doubt is regarding this thing, the executor service. So we can either execute a task that is callable or runnable, right?
Yes.
So why are we using executor completion service? Because
it is used to submit the task. Threads are created. So who will assign the task to the threads? That is a completion service.
But sir, even executor service has the submit method.
That's fine. Even it is also having a submit method. Whenever you go for completion service, till the tasks are completed, we can execute it. It is a bit advanced than that submit. Now, if you go for executor service, here also it might have a submit method.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
It has both for runnable and callable both.
Yeah, right. You can do with that also.
Okay. So, sir, executor completion service is also performs exactly like executor service.
Same. Right. Right. Guys, you understood what is the logic I'm writing? I'm creating a fixed thread pool. The thread pool I'm giving to completion service. Completion service pool.submit. Every submit method should call this. Now, how can I submit this logic? How can I submit the task to the threads? All my pending triggers. Any idea how I need to submit multiple tasks to the threads to process all my pending triggers? Can we write a loop like this? Come on, guys. Can we keep this logic inside our try block? And can we call this process trigger method inside the call method? Is it valid now? You see. Is it valid now? Is it valid? Whatever the pool.submit logic is available, I'm keeping inside the try block. Inside the call method, I'm calling process trigger method. Inside the call method, I'm calling process trigger method. Observe. I have retrieved the number of pending triggers here. I got all the pending triggers. Then I have created a thread pool. Then I have created a completion service. I'm executing a loop for 1,000 times. In this loop, what I am doing? For first execution, submit. Second execution, submit. Third execution, submit. That means 1,000 tasks I'm going to submit to the pool. Pool is going to use the 10 threads to process all these 1,000 triggers. What this submit method is doing? It is submitting a callable task. Inside the callable, I am calling process trigger. First thread will come, pool.submit. When I do pool.submit, it is going to take a thread from the pool. Whatever the thread is available, whatever the thread is free in the pool. Whenever I execute this pool.submit method, it is going to take the thread which is free in the pool. It is going to take the thread which is free in the pool and it is going to submit. That thread is going to call the process trigger. It will process one trigger. Once the trigger is submitted to one thread, again my for each loop will execute. Threads are non-blocking. They are going to execute parallelly. Then immediately second loop will execute. Second time loop will execute. Second time loop also going to submit. Then completion service will take the second thread which is free and submit the trigger. Fourth thread, fifth thread, sixth thread, seventh thread, eighth thread, ninth thread, 10 threads. 10 threads we are creating. For 10 threads the tasks will be submitted. By the time we assign the task to 10 threads, first thread may complete the task. Then first thread it will assign the 11th task. For second thread it will assign the 12th task. So until unless my loop is executed, until unless my loop is completed, pool is going to submit the task to the threads. Now first thread will process by first thread. Without waiting, second thread will process second thread. Third thread will process third trigger. First thread will process first trigger. Second thread will process second trigger. Third thread will process third trigger. Like that it is going to execute continuously. Now right, let's run this program. Run as boot app. Guys, take your stopwatch. Now see how much time it is going to take to process 1000 triggers with multi-threading now. Take your stopwatch. We can monitor the time. Take your stopwatch. We can monitor the time. Now the loop is executing by using threads. Thread.submit. First thread will take, first trigger will process. When the first thread is processing the first trigger, second thread will process second trigger. Parallelly, 10 threads are going to process 10 triggers. Last time, to execute the loop for 1000 times, it has taken 5 minutes 15 seconds. Now, go here. Guys, take your stopwatch. All of you, take your stopwatch. Are you ready? Are you ready with your stopwatch? Are you ready with your stopwatch, guys?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yep. Ready? 1, 2, 3, start. Now, it's processing now. It is processing now. It is processing. 15 seconds. Completed. Stop it. How much time it took to process 1000 triggers now?
Around 20 seconds. 20
Yeah,
plus.
20 seconds it has taken to process 1000 triggers now. But when I go with one thread, how much time it took to process 1000 triggers?
More than 5 minutes.
So can you see the difference with the multi-threading and without multi-threading? Guys, can you see the difference with the multi-threading and without multi-threading?
Yes.
Lot of difference is there. Lot of difference is there. Now, when we have executed the program with a single thread, it has taken 5 minutes of time to process 1000 triggers. But now, I have created a thread pool with 10 threads and I have executed the same program with 10 threads. Now it completed the processing within 20 seconds of time. 20 seconds, 5 minutes, 15 seconds. 5 minutes of time extra it is taking to